Lysergic Acid Diethylamide, colloquially known as acid or LSD, is a psychoactive chemical compound with powerful mind-altering effects. Most closely associated with the hippie counterculture, musicians such as Jimi Hendrix and the Beatles, and some cool animations, LSD has gone through dynamic changes in its consumption patterns and sociocultural meaning. While it emerged as an experimental new drug with potentially positive results for psychiatry, its use soon extensified beyond the laboratory and into wider consumption. LSD reportedly produced profound, often mystical experiences and personal insights, a major reason which fueled much individual and collective experimentation. The intrinsic qualities of LSD greatly influenced its developing meaning, but additionally, three key events happened in 1962 which would largely seal the deal for LSD. LSD was first synthesized in 1938 by Swiss chemist Albert Hofmann, who worked under the pharmaceutical giant Sandoz. Initially, Sandoz found no medicinal use for the new compound, but in 1943, Hofmann decided to resynthesize the drug for further experimentation. During one of these experiments, Hofmann accidentally came into contact with an unknown dose of LSD. Upon feeling lightheaded and unable to continue lab work, he started home on what is now the classic bicycle ride, during which he became the first person to experience the psychedelic effects of the drug. These effects could be best described as auditory and visual hallucinations, but the experience itself was reportedly beyond verbal expression. Shortly thereafter, Sandoz began producing the compound under the brand name Delisib and introduced it to the US in 1948, where it was marketed as a cure-all against various psychological ailments, and psychiatrists were advised to experiment with it themselves in order to gain insights into the mind of the schizophrenic. In fact, the first casual consumers of LSD were members of the academia, for whom the drug was a professional as well as an intellectual curiosity. The reason for such high interest was the challenging nature of the drug itself. The effects it produced were so intense, diverse and outrageous that the rationalistic scientific mind struggled hard to apply its rigid categories to the ineffable experience. The demand for LSD extended beyond the medical and academic fields. In the early 1950s, the CIA sponsored a research operation codenamed Project MKUltra. It was designed to test the military potential of LSD, specifically its capacity of controlling and manipulating behavior, and its usability as a truth serum. The drug was administered to various unwitting and unconsenting subjects, including women, children, and prisoners. However, as early as 1962, the CIA had deemed LSD useless for mind control purposes, claiming its results to be unpredictable, and observing that it led to disorientation and disobedience rather than control. 1962 was a decisive year for LSD. That same year, another investigational new drug, thalidomide, was distributed for testing and led to an epidemic of deformed babies. The public outcry caused the US Food and Drug Administration to tighten its regulations against investigational new drugs, and several states soon outlawed LSD. Responding to these regulations and a decrease in demand from CIA, Sandoz sharply reduced its supply of LSD to the United States. An interesting paradox followed. The availability of LSD actually increased. Up until now, Sandoz was the only major and legal supplier, and through it, the drug reached scientists, and via them, it trickled down in an informal supply channel to the wider population. But now that the main supplier was cut off and there already existed regular consumers of the drug, a black market for LSD emerged, which greatly outproduced anything Sandoz could supply. The reason was once again the nature of the drug. It was fairly easy to synthesize under mediocre laboratory conditions. The formula was readily available, and the quantities producible were very great. Since it was tasteless, colorless, and odorless, it was easily distributable and was soon delivered internationally. At the same time, federal prohibition made LSD production more attractive, because producers could now charge more for the drug that was sold on the black market. Thus, by shutting off the informal channels of LSD via Sandoz, the US opened itself to a major LSD flood. It is estimated that by 1970, between 1 and 2 million Americans had taken an LSD trip. The tightening of regulations and increase in supply coincided with another landmark event. The drug was discovered by Harvard psychology professors Timothy Leary and Richard Alpert, who took a deep interest in it. They performed several social experiments using the drug on Harvard students, which alerted the authorities and led to Harvard's dismissal of Leary and Alpert. Mass publicity followed. Newspapers and media started warning the population against real and imagined dangers of LSD, and one US official ironically dubbed the drug the greatest threat facing America today, more dangerous than the Vietnam War. Meanwhile, Leary was publicly advocating for LSD use. Because of this newfound publicity, LSD was being further popularized, while the confrontation with the state and the establishment turned Leary into a counterculture icon. For him, the use of LSD meant the freedom to govern one's own mind, and he claimed that such autonomy ran counter to the wishes of the establishment. These ideas of personal freedom and resistance against the political system were greatly appealing to the counterculture movement, and in this way the connection between hippies and LSD was further solidified. To sum up, LSD entered the market as a promising new panacea. The unfamiliar and intriguing experiences it produced generated a lot of interest, but since the drug was new and largely unknown to the public, its initial consumers were members of the academia and people associated with them such as friends and patients. Three events coincided in 1962 that catapulted LSD into mass consumption. The decrease in demand for legal LSD caused an increase in the supply through illegal channels, and this attracted a large number of distributors because the drug was very cheap to produce and could be sold at a much higher price. Meanwhile, Dr. Leary's experiments transported LSD into mass awareness. Even though much of the media coverage was negative, it brought the drug to the public's attention for the first time, and since it was prohibited, it had an extra allure of a forbidden fruit. As a brief endnote, there is a recent surge in LSD and psychedelic research in organizations such as MAPS, and the psychedelic community is growing steadily, largely due to the unregulated character of the internet. The question of whether LSD can offer benefits to humanity other than genuinely good music and occasional trippy revelations is still open.